mental health embodies many different things. So mental health relates to how you feel and how you think on the inside. It's about how you take care of your emotions, your thoughts, and your overall well-being. It's also about checking in and seeing, how am I feeling? How am I feeling with myself? It's about what are the thoughts that I'm having? Are my thoughts, my feelings, what I'm doing, is it productive? Is it unproductive? And to what degree is what I'm feeling, is what I'm doing, actually going in the direction that feels like it's fulfilling to my life? And in what ways is it taking me away from the things that are important and valuable and meaningful to me? Next slide. And another area that I also want us to sort of talk about is what mental health is and what mental health is not. So first of all, when we're talking about mental health, this relates to all of us. All of us deal with mental health concerns. It is a part of every single human being. When we talk about mental health, it really is a topic that is very real. It's very complex. It's about our emotions, our behaviors, our thoughts, and how they relate to our daily life. And all of these, our mental health impacts us on a daily basis, and it's changing on a daily basis. Now, one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that when we talk about mental health, talking about the challenges, the struggles, the things that we deal with, that is not a sign of weakness. The thoughts that we have, the feelings that we have, it's also not just something that's in your head that you can just get rid of, stop thinking about it, and just snap out of it, and that's it. That's the end of it. You're fine. That is also not mental health. And talking about mental health is certainly something that we should not be ashamed of. Next slide, please. So as we talk about mental health, I want to introduce the concept of stress. Now, stress is not bad. Stress can actually, to a certain level, it can help us, it can motivate us to get things done that we otherwise wouldn't get done. However, high, consistent levels of stress that can be related to all sorts of different things, including work, family, health. There's just so many components that go into this that can put extra pressure on us, that creates very heightened levels of stress. That can have an impact on all sorts of different components of our lives. And we're going to review each and every one of them, starting with physical health. Now, all these very heightened levels of stress, can impact us in terms of having body aches, or it can manifest itself in body aches, headaches, fatigue, stomach problems, and it can certainly exacerbate or make worse anything that's already pre-existing. Next slide, please. Incredibly high levels of stress can also impact our thinking, so that, we may now engage in constant worrying, thinking about what's going to happen next, and what's happening, is what's going to happen next going to be bad, and is it going to just not work out? And sort of like this idea of expecting the worst things to happen. It can even impact our memory to the degree that we become very forgetful. So perhaps, getting ready for a doctor's appointment, but you forgot your keys and you don't know where your keys are, and you go back into the house. Now you're going to be late to your appointment. So that, increases the distress, increases the worry, and just gets you into this cycle of, being stuck in your head and just being overly worried, overly stressed. Next slide, please. And, it can also impact our emotional health. And let's remember that all of these areas are related to our mental health. This is all part of mental health. So heightened levels of stress, can impact our emotions to the degree where we can feel very irritated. If somebody says something, we may snap at them. And then when we snap at them, they may snap back. So all of a sudden, this argument has started. It can also lead to you feeling, lonely. So feeling like you're by yourself, managing something on your own, and there's nobody to support you, and there's nobody that can provide any assistance. So you actually pull back from others more because you don't feel like you have any connections. And, this is where you can feel easily upset. And as I said, perhaps, angry at the situation and sometimes even angry at yourself. Next slide, please. And all of this also impacts how we behave. So when we're dealing with constant levels of stress, again, related to things that are happening outside of us, inside of us, we can perhaps be more critical of others. Perhaps we notice that we start to eat more, sleep less, and you may even have difficulties getting things done. So you may start, for example, cleaning your home. And as soon as you start cleaning your home, all of a sudden you feel like, you know what, this is just too hard. I can't. And you just stop and you just don't get it done. Next slide, please. So this is where we can notice that, with time, we can make it to different spaces. And again, when we're talking about mental health, there's different ways that we can feel. Perhaps we can feel that we're drowning. We're feeling very worried about the future, don't feel like we have the energy to get things done. You feel exhausted and just isolated, and you just don't feel like you're connected to anybody, and there's just nothing that you can get done and nobody that can help you, and you just feel like you're drowning. On the other hand, you could perhaps feel like you're struggling. You're tired, you're not sleeping well, you worry, you're perhaps pessimistic about what's going to happen next, and it's just hard to get things done. You're doing some things, but they're just really hard. Or perhaps you can be at a space where you feel like you're surviving. You're worried, nervous, you're irritated, you're distracted, you're withdrawn, you're still getting things done, but it's not easy. Or you may feel like you're in a space where you're performing. Yes, you're feeling calm, positive, you're eating, what you typically eat, you have social engagement, and, you're getting things done. On the other hand, you can feel like, oh, you're thriving. You have the energy, you feel cheerful, everything is easy, you're realizing your full potential, and you're connected to others. And for the most part, I would say that folks are, never in one of these spaces all the time. Typically, you're surviving, perhaps performing, maybe thriving. And people, come in and out of these three. However, if you feel like you're drowning or like you're struggling, it is so important to ask for help. Next slide, please. However, there can be reasons or challenges for getting the help that you might need. On the one hand, especially when we're talking about mental health, there can be this belief that, we don't talk about mental health. That's just taboo topic, or, talking about your mental health it's a sign of weakness. And, maybe if I ask for help, especially if I ask to meet with a psychologist or a psychiatrist, my family's going to think that I'm crazy. And the belief that, sometimes there may be things happening at home with family, and, you just don't talk about the problems in your home outside of the family. There may be the belief that, what if I ask for help and they give me medication, and the medication just leads me to getting addicted, and then other medications. So, forget it. I don't want any of that. And even if you say, yes, I want supports, there may be reasons why it's hard to access the support. Perhaps it's due to a legal status, and we know that legal status is related to access to insurance, which leads to not having the resources necessary to be able to even connect with a therapist to get those services. or sometimes even language. Perhaps you might need somebody who speaks your language or understands your culture, and just not having the ability to connect with somebody who gets all of that, and how those can be barriers to the care that you need or that you want. Next slide, please. One thing that today I want to be very mindful of is that asking for help is a strength. And even when there are barriers, where can I go to ask for the support and the guidance that I need to be able to get the support that I'm looking for? So in this case, it can be a matter of connecting with family members, if that's supportive. What are the resources that are available in your schools, perhaps for your children, perhaps for yourself, if you want to go back to school or take a class in your community? What is available in your community? Ways of engaging socially, or services that might be able to connect you to the mental health supports that you need. And certainly, we can say the MS Society is one place where you can get that support, where you can get those resources, where you can get that guidance. There is, churches, other community programming, so many ways of connecting and being able to feel like you can get what you need, especially when you're feeling like you're drowning. It is so important in those moments to say, hey, I need support, because you know what? We all need supports at some point.